Welcome to Get Serious. So there were just a number of fires, it's mostly small this week, but key lessons learned, things where you just have to kind of drop to sort out in a relatively time sensitive manner. So one of the deals that we had in North Carolina that we were under contract to sell for roughly 3x the purchase price. Pretty slow market too. Like it wasn't a buyer that I would want to let go on, and they needed to extend a couple times because survey was just taking forever. It's not too unusual, but the buyer was also really generous, and they were just sending over some non-refundable DD deposits. So they sent over $700 directly to us twice, just to get some money in the door as the extension was going in. So that's a nice little additive bonus there. And so we were set to close in roughly 3 weeks, and the survey came back and there was a small encroachment at the rear of the property. To give you an idea, this is like a roughly 5-acre property. The encroachment is definitely not in the buildable area of the target or the subject lot that we had, but the buyer's agent had expressed, mainly relaying over what the buy side closing attorney was saying is, either need to work with a code enforcement officer locally, or sort it out with the neighbor. But either way, we want to take care of it before closing. So actually our primary agent on the deal had a family emergency. So we were working with one of his partners on the deal that came in for this. And he was just saying, yeah, I can try reaching out to code enforcement, see what that first option would be. And I'm like, okay, let's see what we can do there. But let's also plan to go directly to the neighbor as an alternative to see if we can address this too. And code enforcement was not that they weren't helpful. And I've rarely, we've occasionally dealt with encroachments, usually pretty minor, but I'd never heard of bringing in code enforcement in the first place. And they kind of, just said, hey, that this is not our concern. This is a civil matter. So you either need to sort it out with the neighbors or you're going to have to, take them to court. It's like kind of the only two options, and like avoiding a court case, especially a small property like this, is, maximum priority. Like, okay, let's really try to figure it out with the neighbors here, or get a better sense from the buyers. Like, is this a issue that they're just going to walk from, or can we potentially get a concession? So once code enforcement came back, the broker was saying, all right, I'm going to go visit them today, and here is also a letter in case they're not here, to try to prompt a response. And so again, this is just kind of like middle of the day, interfering with plans, but you kind of got to drop and figure out, okay, what's going on here? It's an encroachment, right? And you're about to close in like 3 weeks. You got to figure this out, and solve the problem, especially like a decent amount of profit, especially in this market. Again, to recycle my capital, get my funds out. And, just as a default now, like even, especially when you're busy and, some of the language, like you really don't want to deal with it if people are already doing some of the work. Just by default, my, response is, okay, before sending anything, let me just like run this through, Claude or ChatGPT, whatever, LLM model, and just kind of really consider the copy again. So I just, set up my full prompt, again, using like the Cal-Faulkner structure. Hey, this is just becoming standard business owner stuff at this point. Like it's kind of table stakes to be a business owner at this point. You got to set the role, the context, what's your request, and ask any clarifying questions to any AI model. So I set that all up within Claude, and I gave it the copy that the broker had indicated. And I'm like, yeah, we want a friendly yet firm draft of a letter. How would you grade this? What would you suggest with all this in mind? And here's some of the other context about the deal. And I should have mentioned, the encroachment was quite tiny. It was, maybe 10 feet deep on our property, but deep in the rear, and like maybe 60 feet across. But on a 5-acre property, like triangular shaped, it was just super, super minor, like less than 1% of the property. So I presented it to Claude, and it was immediately saying, yeah, this is just like reading very passive aggressive and just way too formal, like corporate jargon. And again, I didn't write the initial draft, but I'm just trying to get some feedback before we could send it back. And of course, it's asking for some clarifying questions, and I wanted to figure out more of what was going on too. So Claude was like, okay, how significant was the encroachment? Get the exact measurements. So I was trying to get that, what type of fence is it? How difficult might it be to move? How long has it been there? The timeline pressure, is it going to block the sales? That's why I'm also like, okay, what's the temperature of the buyer at the moment? Or is this like a walk risk or no? Would we be willing to offer any compromise? Yes, definitely, to avoid going to court. So, just trying to get additional questions here before it can really frame the response. So then I got on the line with the broker and started running through it. And it turns out that when the surveyors were doing the survey, which was, I don't know, within the last 2 weeks or so, doing the field work, that is when the fence was going up. So that to me was like a very optimistic sign, because it's like, okay, maybe the fence contractors just screwed up and might have some warranty period on it. It's not like the fence has been there for 10 some odd years to be put up. So, they should be more amenable to getting something that was literally just done changed, because it's just a mistake. And also, just getting more clarity that the buyer is like seemingly not going to walk from the deal, that they would want to sort it out. But, if we really had, if it turned out that, the neighbor was going to be difficult to work with, or just flat out hostile, that, maybe we could work out some concessions, since it was not a major impact on the property. And so then I had more ammo to go back to Claude. And again, I was hoping, with the broker strategy, hey, he's going to go after 5 p.m. Hopefully somebody's home, just talk him through it first off, before leaving a letter. But, we have to account for that contingency of leaving a letter. So I'm like, yeah, let me draft the copy here. And so I went back to Claude and I gave him all the follow-up. I could have just used the transcript. I just used, whisper flow to cover the main points for what I discussed with the broker. And then it came back with what I thought was just a much better approach of, again, really referencing the recent fence installation, and just thinking, would you mind reaching out? Like it wasn't as forceful or like threatening legal action behind it. It's more of just a conversation starter. Hey, we noticed this boundary dispute, and also laying down our timeline. Hey, my clients are about to sell this in 3 weeks. Buyer's attorney had said we need to address this. Like, can you reach out to your contractors who put up the fence to see if they can move it? Here's my information. I'm happy to walk the property with you, to walk along the line. So it was just a much, again, more friendly yet firm setup. No, that's always a risk. Like, if you start putting people on their back foot, especially if it's an honest mistake, which, we were hoping it was, you want to leave that opportunity to build up some rapport, and then kind of, again, gauge the temperament of who you're dealing with. And then I got a call later from the broker. He was able to talk with the neighbors, and they did walk the property line. It's like, they thought our surveyors screwed up initially, but they were very friendly. But then it turned out that there was even a previous survey done on our property decades ago, it seems like, and some of those survey lines were still there, and they realized it was going through the garden. They just put the fence around. So like, yeah, we'll take care of this before you guys close. No worries. So we didn't even need to drop the letter. But this to me is just another example of, again, use AI to your advantage here, that just anytime there is kind of like you're making any type of assumptions, or there could be, some decent downside risk, you just want to polish up communications, especially potentially, adverse communication. Just run through and see, okay, what am I risking here? What should I be considering before following up with these folks, and just strategizing, like take a pause and set it up. Unfortunately, it worked out. We didn't even need to leave our written agreement, or written letter rather. We're going to sort it out. Buyers are going to close as planned. But it's like a small fire, right? You can't just ignore that and hope for the best, because it could prevent a $60K sale from happening. So that is where we ended up on this one. So hopefully that helps you strategize within your own business as well. And SeriousLand.capital for any of your funding needs. Again, $50K minimum, $150K purchase price preferred. Zero cost review your land deals at Land Daily Diligence Facebook group, and AI for the most reliable land pricing tool on the market. With that, subscribe and share. Take care, everybody. Talk to you next time. Bye.